Well, hi, Jenna.
Well, hi, Shelby.
Welcome back to another episode of Miss Willa's Book Club. This time we've got part 2 of our intro to genre, so stay tuned for all of our recommendations.
Yeah, let's kick it off.
Let's get into it. All right, so the next genre that we are going to be having is mystery. And so the first one that I have for the mystery genre is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn.
Oh, classic.
Right? And this one could be on the fence between a mystery and a thriller. It is also a classic movie, if y'all have seen it. The book was just as good.
Yes.
I loved the book. It kept me captivated literally from page 1, and I read the book before I watched the movie, and I felt like it was just so good. It had you like on your toes the entire time.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's a super good suggestion. Oh, sorry.
What do you have for your mystery?
My first mystery is The Whisper Man. This one I feel like is more on the mystery than the thriller, and for the most part I've read more thrillers, but it's a really good one. There's basically a young boy vanishes, and there's a guy who's like, I don't know, kind of trying to make a new start in a new town, and his son is like hearing weird things and acting strangely, and the dad is kind of trying to figure out what's going on because no one knows why this other boy disappeared. And it's appropriately creepy. So a good mystery for sure.
Oh my goodness. I love it. The next one that I have is One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose.
Ooh, I haven't read that one.
Oh, this one was so good. So I actually listened to it on audiobook, and I love audiobooks. It was really cool because there are like 4 or 5 different POVs, and so you're hearing from all of these women in the town to see who killed one of the other women.
Ooh.
And so you're listening to all of their different point of views, and you're like, but who actually did it? Like, who is actually doing it? It was like a really, really good whodunit.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really fun. So you're like trying to figure out who's being deceitful in it.
Yeah. And
That's
it was interesting to get into, especially on audiobook, because they had different voices for every character. And so it was like, okay, somebody else is talking, but you had to like get used to it. And then it was like, okay, this is who it is. This is who it is. And it was so fun to listen to.
Good. That sounds like a good one.
Yeah, it was a really good one.
Okay. So my second mystery is The Chestnut Man, which I also lending out my copy of, so I don't have it right now. But there's again a kind of like series of murders.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm remembering right, our main character is trying to investigate them, and the killer's like calling card is a small like twiggy man made out of a chestnut and stuff. It's like that's his thing that he leaves at the crime scenes. And yeah, it's a pretty wild ride that book takes you on of who it could have been or how they're even like making it work, because they're like not finding very many other clues besides that, and it's wild. It's good mystery.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't read a whole lot of mystery. The next one that I have was Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. And
That's a good one.
I like Lisa Jewell's writing. I didn't love the, what was that one None of This Is True.
Was that Lisa Jewell too?
That was Lisa Jewell.
Oh, yeah. I've also read, I think it's like The Wife Upstairs, maybe. Oh, no, that's not her. There's another one I've read by Lisa Jewell too that I really liked. I do like her in general.
Yeah. This one especially was really fun. I listened to it on Audible again. I love audiobooks. And the summary for this one is a 15-year-old Ellie Mack was the perfect daughter. She was beloved by her parents, friends, and teachers. She and her boyfriend made a teenage golden couple. She was days away from an idyllic summer vacation with her whole life ahead of her, and then she was gone. And so it's kind of like a murder mystery. You're trying to figure out what's going on with Ellie Mack's case, and I thought this one was really good.
That was a good one. I think that was one of the first thrillers I ever read.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, that's a good one. The couple thrillers I've got are actually from towards the beginning of when I started reading again too. The first one is Home Before Dark, and I'd also put Lock Every Door kind of in this category. They're good ones for that, like sort of creepy. You can't tell if it's just people being weird or if there's a little supernatural in it, which I thought was like kind of fun because it kind of keeps you guessing on that front. Yeah, it was good ones though. I like Riley Sager in general. I think his thrillers are really fun and engaging.
Yeah. And he has one that people have really been loving recently called One of Us.
The Only One Left.
The Only One Left.
Yeah, I still haven't read that one yet, which is why I haven't put it on this list, but I am excited to read it.
Oh, that's so fun. I love thrillers. I feel like I have a few of them that are really good. So the first one that I just blew through and I know people just loved it was The Housemaid.
I still haven't read that one either. I know people really liked
good.
it.
I literally read it in one sitting.
Wow.
I sat down and read it from start to back.
Yeah.
It was so good. And it's basically a young woman takes a job as a housemaid and starts to notice an odd interaction between the family members and the secrets that may be worse than her own.
Ooh.
It was so good. I felt like there were a few different twists and turns that just kept me like, wait, what? Wait, what? Throughout the entire thing. It was so good.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I've been meaning to read that one too. And there's a couple of them out, right? There's like some sequels too.
I think the second one is The Housemaid's Secret. And I think there's a third one too, but I can't remember what the name was.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So
I've been
fun.
meaning to read that one too.
That was a really, really good one.
Okay, the last thriller that I have is The Silent Patient. I think this one had a moment a couple years ago too.
Oh, yeah.
This maybe 2019. So I think maybe when it was very popular, but probably still around today too. And there's a criminal psychotherapist that's kind of talking to somebody who's in a mental institution who refuses to talk to anybody about a crime that was previously committed. And I kind of won't get more into it than that because I don't want to ruin anything, but it is sort of wild seeing this, the psychotherapist going through this, and that it feels like he's going kind of crazy too as he's talking to this woman that won't talk back. And
he's like obsessed with her.
Yes, obsessed, and trying to figure out the secrets of like what happened in that case in the past. And so I think a lot of people really loved this book too.
I actually also have that on my list. I had a friend recommend that to me and she brought it to me. She's like, you have to read this. Loved it. I loved it so much.
Nice. Good ones.
I love a book with a twist too, though. Something where I'm just like, wait, did not see it going in that direction.
Oh, yeah.
They're so fun. I have one more thriller on our list here, and I got it from Book of the Month. It is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. And the description of it is Alex has all but given up her dreams of becoming a published author when she receives the opportunity to attend an exclusive month-long writing retreat at the estate of feminist horror writer Rosa Vallow, who drops a bomb that participants must complete an entire novel from scratch during the retreat, and the winner will have their work published. Rosa turns out to have an erratic behavior and plays mind games with all of the participants. Alex then becomes desperate to uncover the truth to save herself and the others.
Ooh.
It was so good.
That sounds wild.
It was wild. And it was one of those books where I was like, oh, the writing retreat, it's going to be fun. And then I was like, it was
intense.
Very intense. Intense is a really good word for it.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure I have a copy of that and haven't gotten to it yet either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate. My mother-in-law is amazing and also does Book of the Month, and she gives me all of her hand-me-downs.
I love it.
And she loves thrillers too, so I almost always get a lot of thrillers from her.
Book of the Month has the best thrillers.
They really do. They always have so many, because pretty much every month they have at least one or two like mysteries or thrillers of some sort.
Yeah.
And honestly, most of them have been good. I think there's only been one that I was like, on.
Yeah, same here. And I feel like I've read most of them too.
Yeah.
It's been so fun.
Yeah, they're good ones for sure. So next, let's talk about a little bit of YA. We talked about some more adult fantasy, or I mean, not all of them are necessarily adults. Maybe some of those are NA, but I would say these are like way more in the truly young adult category. Yeah. And the first one isn't like an old one, but a classic. This is actually the third in the series because I couldn't find my first ones. But it's the His Dark Materials series that starts with The Golden Compass. This was one that I think I read maybe when I was in elementary school, maybe middle school, but I think it was elementary school. And it's just so good. You get like animal companions, and there's like magic and unknown things in the world. And there's a girl who's like adventuring to try and save her friends and riding a polar bears. And I mean, it's a fun adventure for sure.
So fun.
So I remember loving this one when I was younger.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Classic.
I feel like YA fantasy too is so easy to read. It doesn't necessarily have that like heavy romance subplot. It's more about like the adventure.
Yes, it's about the adventure. Fun. And that's maybe even not YA. That might even be children's more than it is YA. So maybe I should say that. But
it still counts. It's still still younger. That was
Well, bam.
I know, I'm just smacking the microphone over here. The first one that I have is The Cruel Prince for a YA fantasy. This one's really fun. It's so, gosh, I don't know if lighthearted is the word, but it's got some really funny aspects to it. Not a lot of romance, maybe a little bit of a romance subplot, but it's definitely super easy to read. The books are really short, so you can get through them really fast.
That's a really unique like world setting in that one too. Like it's very like what you think of as fairy.
Absolutely.
I think it's like the one that has the most fairy vibes, if that makes sense. Like very fairy in the garden kind of vibes.
Like Carden has a tail and we got all these different creatures. It's definitely very out there.
Oh, that's good though.
What's next for you?
The next one I have is The Nature of Witches, and this, if you're seeing any of the videos, is beautiful. This is just the regular hardback.
That is really beautiful.
Yeah, there is a dust jacket that goes over it, and I don't have it on there because I love the hard case on this.
So pretty.
But this is just like the traditionally published version of it.
I love it.
It's like a story of witches, obviously, who have like seasonal magic, and there's like stuff going on with like things going funky with the world and weather and things like that. And between all of the witches who have all these different types of like seasonal magic, they're kind of trying to like make things work and pull things back together to save the world. And yeah, so it's good. It's kind of like a different twist on that. I feel like it's I don't want to say a whimsical feel. That's not the right word. I'm not sure what I don't know. Atmospheric. I don't know. It's kind of in that vibe, but there's a good YA. Again, I think there's maybe a very small romance subplot, but it's not the main part of the story. It's more about a girl who is a witch who's trying to do what she can to
I love it.
save the world.
To save the world. I love it. My last YA that I was going to talk about is a very large series, but it is such a classic, and it is by far one of my favorite series I've ever read, and that is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. There's 8 books.
A lot.
There's a lot. There's a lot of them.
Thousands of pages.
Thousands of pages. And it is super packed with adventure. It is definitely YA. So what did you call it before? A closed door romance?
Yeah.
We never find out what he did.
Yeah, we don't know what Lorcan did, and we'll forever be scarred from not knowing what Lorcan did.
Forever. We wish. I wish there was more spice in it, but there's not.
I mean, it's YA. YA isn't really supposed to have spice.
I know. But in this particular case, especially, I wish it did. Yeah. But yeah, highly recommend, because it is, even though it's a big commitment, it is by far one of my favorite series I've ever read, and I probably think about it a couple of times a week. So
I love that.
I know I love it so much.
Yeah, it's a good one. My last YA recommendation is Middle Game. This is one I kind of don't feel like I don't know, see talked about very often. This is one maybe more on the like dark, creepy sort of side of it. There's some magic and some, I don't know, uneasiness. I feel like it's like I can give you more of like that vibe, is that it's more on that part, but it's more like an alchemy kind of magic, like kind of on that side. Some murder. It's creepy. But I remember I gave it 5 stars. I read it a really long time ago now, so there have been a lot of stories in between, and it's a little blurry on what the details were, but I remember really liking it and thinking it was a very different type of story, which was cool.
That's very cool.
So it's another like a different side of YA if you want to bridge into something like that.
That's really fun. So kind of YA, but kind of diving a little bit more into historical fiction. One that we read last year, and we actually just read the second one. This was The Letters of Enchantment duology. And so the first one is Divine Rivals, and the second one is Ruthless Vows. Divine Rivals for me was a 5-star read. I adored this book. The writing is absolutely fantastic. It's kind of set in like a fantasy world a little bit, but it feels really historical. And so you've got these magical typewriters, and the way that they describe the clothes and the way that they speak is very old-timey. And I absolutely adored it.
That's a good way to describe it. Actually, it's a really good way to describe it.
Thank you.
That's a good one. Yeah. Also in the historical fiction front, I have Sarah's Key. I think this was actually a really popular movie too a while back. I don't know.
I was like, who is that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was made into a movie later. But it goes, I think back, and if I remember right, it goes back and forth between times a little bit of so it's set right around World War II, and it's like a 10-year-old girl is, you know, taken in the middle of the night as they're doing like door-to-door arresting during the war, and she locks her baby brother in like this hidden cabinet inside her room, thinking that she's gonna be like saving him by putting him there so he doesn't get taken by the police. And, you know, they never, like, the family doesn't go back there. So then fast forward in time, she's like coming back, the war has ended, and she's trying to find what happened to her younger brother. And so if you like World War II stories, this is a really good one. And I mean, it was a good movie too, but it's a good book also.
That sounds incredible.
Very serious book.
Yeah, that sounds like it. I feel like sometimes the historical fiction would be more serious. I was trying to find, I read this book, gosh, maybe 5 years ago. And I remember it was kind of about a second chance romance. And it was like love letters that had gone back and forth years and years and years ago. And letters were not sent, and things were missing. And I cannot for the life of me remember this book, but I think about it all the time.
Oh, we'll have to figure out what the title of it was.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I might have a physical copy at home. So if I find it, I'll put it in the show notes here, but just know that it was a really great historical fiction.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. Yeah, I haven't read a ton of historical fiction. And so this is my last one too, is Atomic Love. This was another book of the month book, and this is historical romance, I guess, and not part of historical fiction. And it's, if I'm remembering this right, it's about a woman who worked on the Manhattan Project, and which you remember was like the atomic bombs. And so after the bombs are dropped, and you fast forward a few years, and she's like kind of, I think, gotten out of the field a little bit and has like a lot of guilt over how her work was being used, but she sort of gets sucked back in a little bit. There was a man that she had a relationship with, like back when she was still working on the project, that she was like very close with. And as she starts reconnecting with him, the like FBI or some government agency connects with her and is like, hey, we need information from him. We're trying to get out. Will you basically be, you know, like spying and digging in on that? And there's another, I think, romantic option that kind of comes into the picture too. And so she's sort of with like both of these men and like deceiving the one, and like
a love triangle,
a little bit of a love triangle. So that historical romance side.
Oh my gosh,
but I remember liking this one too.
Oh, that sounds really fun. I love that. So that's a perfect segue into our next one.
That's right.
We've got the romance category.
Oh yeah.
Why don't you start? Because I want that book.
You can take it home and borrow if you have to.
I have the yellow or the orange version of it.
You have Love Theoretically.
Yeah, you're right. It's different.
Yeah.
The orange one, it's just a completely different book.
But that's a good point. So I'm holding The Love Hypothesis right now by Ali Hazelwood, and Shelby brings that up because there's also Love on the Brain and The Love Hypothesis, or the Love Theoretically.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
That are all sort of the, you know, same story, different font, you know.
Yeah.
But they're all great. They're all STEM romances. They're funny and kind of lighthearted. They talk about some real issues briefly, but mostly they're just kind of like sweet and make you kick your feet.
Oh, so that's so fun.
It's like good for a nice fluffy romance.
Oh, I love that. I love that. If you want a romance that's going to make you cry, because that's my favorite, I highly recommend as an intro to romance something like The Notebook or anything Nicholas Sparks. I feel like those are so easy to read, and the romance is always so good. The man always falls so hard and says the best things, and they usually get turned into movies.
So, yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think I've actually read any of those books, I'm gonna be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I used to read them in high school, and my mom would give them to me. So my mom is a huge Nicholas Sparks fan.
I see.
We would always go see the movies, and we'd bring tissues, and we'd both cry.
Oh.
It was so precious, and so we used to read those all the time. Yeah, so basically anything Nicholas Sparks would be a great intro to romance.
I'd say one more on the fluffy side of romance too is the Off Campus series, which starts with The Deal, and it's college setting, Each of the books in the series is a different couple, you know, so like interconnected standalones, about some guys on a hockey team and, you know, girls that end up coming into the picture too. And so it kind of, the deal starts with this, you know, nerdy girl who makes a deal with this hockey player to basically give him some tutoring, and he's helping her with something as well. And then of course they kind of grow closer, and it's cute and fluffy.
Oh, I love that. The next one that I have on here that I know that you've read too is The Spanish Love Dissension by Elena Armas. And we did this for our February book club with our Galentine's theme. Yeah. And I felt like this was also just a great fluffy rom-com. It's basically a forced companion and fake relationship. And she needs a wedding date, especially since she has told her entire family that she has an American boyfriend. And he steps in oh so willingly and says, "Let me be your date."
Yeah, I feel like that one is another good spot to start in, like that fluffy rom-com space, because if you've ever watched rom-coms, I feel like it reads like a rom-com movie from the 2000s.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It was so fun.
It's cute and funny.
Do we have any other romance ones?
Well, I've got maybe a romantic suspense.
Oh, I like it.
Which is a, you know, maybe a different sub-genre of romance, but Indigo Ridge. It's part of the Eden series, also on Kindle Unlimited. And there's a murder, and it's also kind of a small town setting. I think maybe small town Montana, but I don't remember specifically where. And yeah, we kind of got like the tough and burly guy living out on the big piece of land, and there's a girl who like comes into town, and then there's a murder that happens, and people are kind of trying to figure it. Well, excuse me, someone dies. And they're trying to figure out if it was suicide or murder or who was involved. And so there's a lot of the suspense aspects to it, but there's also the relationship piece of it. So it is like definitely romantic suspense is like kind of the category I put it in.
I feel like I would read that so fast.
Yeah, I did read it really fast. I still haven't read the others in the series, but I did really enjoy it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so fun. We'll get a little spicy.
I was going to say, should we get a little spicy?
It's going to be so fun. It's getting hot in here.
Woo!
Woo! We're going to move into some erotica.
Yeah. I feel like the first, because I have these kind of broken up into some subgenres here too. And so the first one, if you're like easing into erotica, if you're interested in reading some spicy books and you haven't before, I have my first category I was calling sweet but filthy. And so these are ones that are like maybe not too weird, but definitely filthy from like a spice perspective. But they're not like super taboo or something. They're maybe like more regular kinks sort of things.
I love it.
And I know the first one, you love that series, so why don't you tell me about it?
So the first one that we have to talk about is The Salacious Players Club by Sarah Kay. Oh, man.
Amazing. Amazing.
I read this book. This is still so funny to me. So a couple years ago, I was like halfway through this book and I was like, Jenna girl, you gotta read this. Yep. You have to read Praise by Sarah Kay. And you finished it before I did.
I started it that same day and I think I read it until like 3 a.m. and I finished the entire book in one sitting.
She was
and
like,
I texted Shelby the next day and I was like, it was amazing.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? You're done with it? How did you finish it so fast?
Yeah, I flew through those books. They were so good.
And all of them were so good. I think the only one that I haven't read was the one from the woman's point of view.
I haven't read Madame or whatever. Madam.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Madame.
I don't know.
Madame. I have no idea.
Yeah, we haven't read that one yet. That's the newest one, I think. And I haven't read that one. But
the rest of them?
The rest are great. They all have like different types of kinks in them too.
Yeah, and each book is like a certain type of kink. And so Praise was like dominance. And then we had one of the other ones.
You got Eyes on Me. Polly.
Yep.
We have the stepbrother video.
Oh, yep.
Yep.
And it's funny because even if these kinks are sometimes like, they're not totally taboo. They're like normal
just a little
kinks.
Taboo though. Yeah.
And it was like reading it, it just made it so normal.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. If you haven't read it, specifically this series, we're talking about the Salacious Players Club that, that name is of a club that there's like a handful of people who started together that is a kink club,
Yes.
right? But like a very elegant
Yes.
kink club. It's like not a trashy thing, but they do a lot of different events and they try to be really like open to exploring things that you enjoy. And so they really normalize the idea of all of these different kinks or of being tied up or of being watched or watching, you know, all of that type of stuff.
It's basically like an area for people to like enjoy their kinks and explore sexual relationships. It was, the way that they describe this club is very
I wish it existed in real life. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So that's the first one in that sweet but spicy.
I know, I love it.
And then
I would reread that series.
Oh yeah, for sure. The other one I have in kind of that sweet but spicy is a Why Choose romance called Nanny for the Neighbors.
Oh my gosh.
And so basically there are these 4 guys that live in an apartment above a girl who is a nanny and is currently unemployed. And because her like daycare center closed down or whatever. And the 4 guys are used to sharing women. And so somebody shows up with a baby unexpectedly and they don't know whose the baby is, but it must be one of the 4 of theirs. So they take in this baby, but they all are like very dude-ish and just don't know how to take care of a baby. Oh, and so they enlist their neighbor from downstairs to come and nanny and like take care of him. But then she forms relationships with all of them too, and it's great.
That sounds so awesome.
Excellent.
I know you loved that one.
Yep, that was a good one.
A classic erotica that I have next, and this is actually a really funny story. So my mother and I read both of these and watched all of these movies at midnight together. This is the 50 Shades of Grey series.
Oh my God.
And I feel like this is kind of between like a sweet but filthy, but also kind of taboo, because this was, I know it wasn't the first of its kind, but it was the first to like...
It was the first loud and popular one, I think.
First loud and popular, and made into a movie. And I remember after reading it the first time, I had a friend who was like, I don't know if you like that. But then I read it and I devoured it. Basically, Anastasia Steele is about to graduate from college. I don't even need my notes to talk about it. Is about to graduate from college when she runs into Christian Grey. And he basically says, you have to be under contract if you want to be a part of my life and a part of a relationship with me. But it is a very specific type of relationship. And Anastasia Steele is a very innocent woman. And she gets thrown into the world of BDSM. And yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. That was an eye-opening book for me as a younger woman.
Same here. I did not realize that I don't want to say people like that exist, that things like that existed, and I didn't know that people explored. Yeah. So yeah, same here.
Oh, well then using that to bridge into kind of the more, say, taboo a little bit too. Have you read Birthday Girl yet?
Heck yeah, I have.
So Birthday Girl is a dad of your ex-boyfriend and girl romance. Yep. I don't have much more to say about that. It's definitely very taboo. They're like all 3 living in the house. Like the girl and her ex-boyfriend had moved in together and then they broke up, but she can't afford to move out. Yeah. And so they're just still living in his dad's house. And his dad is like, well, my son didn't appreciate you the way that he should have, but I can.
But I can. And he does.
And he does.
And he does.
He does.
Ooh, yes, yes sir. That one. On the same note, what else do we got?
Also in that taboo space, we have Credence.
By Penelope Douglas.
Yeah, by Penelope Douglas. And this one, our girl is in her senior year of high school, right? Is that right?
I think so.
Or maybe she's graduated. I think she's maybe graduated. She's 18, I think. Very young.
Because she has to be.
Could be 18. That's true. Yeah, and her parents both like tragically pass away, and her next of kin that can be responsible for her is her uncle. I think it's uncle, maybe.
I think it was like
or
who she goes to stay with.
Yeah.
No, I think he was like, I don't think they were actually related. I think it was
they weren't related by blood. It was like some relation by marriage. I think it's like an uncle or a like
or like a second
stepdad
uncle
or something. Yeah.
Like family relations somehow, but not blood related.
No blood relation.
No blood. I was like, I have to
Key
clarify
point there.
this.
So yes, with him and his two sons, but who live in like the middle of nowhere in the mountains, and she's like used to living in the city, so she moves out to stay with them because she's kind of being required to have them take care of her, and it's a lot of family bonding.
Family bonding. Oh my God. Family relations, family bonding.
So yep, that's you want to bridge into some taboos? Pretty taboo.
You know what though? The writing was so fun. Like, it's very taboo.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Yeah, it feels like you should be more weirded out reading it, but then you're like, well, they're not related by blood.
I know. As I was literally just defending it. They're not related by blood.
Yeah.
I remember while I was reading it, somebody asked me, "What are you reading?" And it was somebody I was like, "Oh," and I just like started explaining it. And I was like, but it's
yeah. Like, it's not as bad as it sounds, I promise.
But it is.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so continuing in the erotica subgenres, we have a why choose or a reverse harem, which if you aren't familiar with that means multiple male love interests, all with one woman.
Woo!
Sometimes at the same time, sometimes not.
Yes. I love this one.
Yep, I'm a big fan of why choose romances. The first series that I'd recommend if you want to test the waters in reverse harem is the Hades series, and this is by Tate James, I think is maybe who the author is, and it starts with Seventh Circle. It's sort of a not mafia, gang, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So she's the leader of a gang, and there are other leaders of gangs or, you know, guys prominent in the gang in the area, and there's kind of some like gang feud stuff going on. She's a little bit older of a main character. All the guys are like a little psycho, but in a fun way.
Oh, all right.
There's a male stripper. I mean, it's great.
Nice.
It's a pretty wide range. It's a trilogy, I think.
Okay.
But it's got a really interesting, like the gang fighting part of it.
Yeah.
Like that side, that competition is like a really interesting backstory too. And like she has somebody who's coming out from her past that is now basically trying to like destroy her and like kill her and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And there's like a lot more plots going on at that side, but obviously it's not like they're going to go to the police because they're doing some sketch stuff too.
Oh my goodness.
So that's a great
really
one.
Fun. But the next one that I know we both read and we both loved that's a reverse harem is the Bonds That Tie series.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious. I loved that series.
Yeah, that's my favorite spicy series. So that's a fantasy romance reverse harem. And in that world, there's like predetermined, not mates. What do they call them?
Kind of like, oh gosh, it wasn't mates. You're right. But it was some type of like, some system like gives you like who you're.
It's like they could do like blood tests to see who was going to be a part of like your
who you're bonded is.
Who you're bonded
That's
are.
What
yeah.
It was.
And so you could have any number of bonds. But I think part of why that was could be an interesting place to start for like why choose if you haven't read it before is because it's so normalized in the entire world that you're in that pretty much every relationship is some variation of like multiple people. And so it doesn't feel taboo for our main couples, you know what I mean? And in most of the other reverse harems, I feel like it's more of our world and it's like a surprise that you're gonna keep multiple people. And so I think that made it really cool dynamics. And it's a bigger group of men too. Six men?
It was like, it was 5 or 6 men to her.
To her, yeah.
Oh, that was fun. And they each have like their own distinct fun personalities and different ways to,
Yeah, and they all have different, I mean, magic isn't the right word, but they all have different types of like abilities too built in. And so does our main character, and hers is potentially very destructive. And so she's really scared to use that ability or to bond with any of these bonds that she has
because
that are predetermined.
they all have so many like really big heavy abilities.
Yeah, so it's pretty wild.
It was very wild. I loved that entire series. I don't think there was a single book in that series that I didn't love.
Yeah, I love that too. That's probably in my top for spicy series.
I think so too.
In the top there.
I think so too. After that, I know we've both read this one too, but for paranormal romance, what's your go-to for an intro?
Yeah, if you like the paranormal side of it, or maybe more with like demons and stuff too, Soul to Take, is that the first one? It's the Souls trilogy. They're all on Kindle Unlimited also.
Yeah.
And in the trilogy, it's 3 different couples, so interconnected standalones. But I think one of my favorite parts about reading all of them is they're all set sort of in the same time frame, but you're seeing like the same event happen from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really so cool. Yeah, that was really fun. And so unlikely relationships with these demons.
With demons, yes. Reiterate, demons. And this is an erotica. So
yes.
It was very interesting, but so good.
Spicy.
So good. So spicy. One that I want to say, do not start with if you're trying to get into erotica. Absolutely do not start with Haunting Adeline. It's very popular on TikTok and Instagram, and people say they either love it or hate it. Don't let that be your first, because that one gets very heavy, and I feel like
people are misled because it's shown as so popular right now. I think in general, if you've not read a lot of erotica before, I don't know that I would recommend starting with dark romance.
Agreed.
Just because it's a big step, you know, because I would say there's a lot that fall in that category that I think can be maybe a little intense to start with, for sure. Or even like Den of Vipers. I think that's another one that gets passed around as really popular to start with. And like, it's a lot, especially if you've not read anything like that before. I think it would be a pretty immediate turn off for a lot of people.
Right.
So maybe not the place to start there.
Probably not the place to start. But
yeah, I just have one more in the like erotica subgenres, and this is maybe for I haven't read it yet, but maybe for Bride fans, because I know the Bride has been very popular, also by Ali Hazelwood.
I actually just read that one.
Yeah?
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, good. But that is kind of falling in that Omegaverse sort of subcategory of erotica, is what I've heard at least.
Ooh.
And so also in that Omegaverse section is Pax St. Clair, which starts with lilacs and leather. And that
I like that name.
Yeah, that is also a reverse harem. Yeah, reverse harem, and has the like Omegaverse kind of like dominant, submissive society type dynamics too. So yeah,
interesting.
And like with her going into heat and everything, it's it's a little out there. It was a little
so funny.
It was a little much for me, but I could see it being a really good. It was the first Omegaverse thing I read. I don't know that I'll read more, but
oh my god.
But for people who thought that was an interesting idea to try, it's a place to go.
Place to start. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that was my most excited category to talk about. I think
it's a fun one.
That's such a fun one. But this next one is just a little lighter. This is our contemporary fiction genre.
The only one that I have for in the contemporary fiction is Razorblade Tears.
Ooh.
I also have that one on loan right now, but it was a really good book. It's about 2 dads, a black man and a white man whose sons were gay and got married, and neither father really approved of their relationship, and then their sons are brutally murdered, and the cops are really not doing anything about it. This is set in the South, where there's definitely some societal discrimination and things and bias towards that. And so the dads kind of take it upon themselves to investigate their son's murder. And so you see this really interesting dynamic of I don't know, this perspective's coming from this like white sort of trailer trash man and this black self-made man who had been in prison and since then has like come out, started his own lawn care business, and he's like really making it work and trying to do the good family man thing. And as they're investigating and like kind of brutally investigating the murder and trying to figure out what happened there, they also are, you know, sort of coming to accept their sons in a way that they never did when they were alive. And it's a great story, really good story.
I've definitely heard you talk about that one before. That one sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Ugh. The one that I have for contemporary fiction is Fires Everywhere by Celeste, and I'm so sorry I don't know how to pronounce this last name, but it's NG.
Yeah.
And that the description is, in Shaker Heights, a progressive suburb of Cleveland, everything is meticulously planned and nobody embodies this more than Elena Richardson, whose guiding principle is playing by the rules. Mia and her daughter Pearl rent a house from Elena and soon bridge a relationship with the Richardson children. A custody battle for an adopted baby puts Mia and Elena at opposing sides, which uncovers secrets and comes at a devastating cost.
Isn't that a TV show with Reese Witherspoon?
Yes, it is. And I freaking loved the show. I watched the show first and then I read the book. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, nice. I think I've seen a couple episodes of it maybe, but I haven't seen very much of it.
Oh, I love it.
Nice. Good.
It was such a good one.
That's awesome.
And then for our last genre for nonfiction.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of nonfiction recommendations. I don't think Shelby or I have read a ton of it outside of school.
Right.
You know, we've read some nonfiction for school, but if you are interested at all in trying nonfiction, do have a couple places that we think could be good starting points. So one of the first ones that I think is supposed to be really moving, my mom read this and absolutely loved it, is called Just Mercy. And it's about an innocent man who is on death row, and kind of it's from the lawyer's perspective, I think, is the lawyers talking about this case. And so it's kind of like the Innocence Project, if you've heard of that, like the attempts to get innocent men off of death row. And so just a really like intense story of trying to free this man that was wrongfully committed.
Oh man.
So that's Just Mercy. Like, it could be a good place to start. On a very different note, I have The Art of Gathering, which is how we meet and why it matters. And the author used to be like an event planner for, I don't know, a really wide range of events, including like large corporate events to like smaller intimate gatherings and stuff. And she gives just a lot of input on like psychology of how to make an event that you plan, whether that be a dinner party or something at work or whatever that you're doing with your friends, how to make it meaningful and memorable, and like how to keep people actively engaged. And so I really like to host. And so I thought that's been really fun to hear maybe more of the psychology behind pieces of it too. So that's kind of like a more learning type one.
Yeah. And the one of them that I have that's kind of along those similar lines, and I think everybody should read this, is The 5 Love Languages. I feel like not only did I learn so much about myself, but I also learned so much about how different other people could be. And I find that having that specific knowledge just really helps me in like any relationship, like best friend or partner or colleague.
Yeah, family, like all sorts of ways. Oh yeah, that sounds like a good one.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
My last nonfiction one is nonfiction but reads like fiction, and that's Under the Banner of Heaven. And it's about the Mormon fundamentalists and kind of goes in depth a little bit about the religion too. And it's kind of centered around a story of two men who like had a brutal double murder and said that they were called by God to basically do this murder. And so it goes into sort of like their psyche a little bit of how they got so intense about like God telling them this. And it talks a little bit more about the Mormon religion as a whole and maybe how it's interacting with politics in the area, and wild. So nonfiction that reads like fiction.
Yeah, I would think that would be fiction, but
right.
Whoa.
Real story.
It's crazy. Well, how fun was this?
Yeah, lots of good options and some new ones that you've read that I haven't too.
Same. I feel like this will be a really great list to go back to and be like, oh, like right now we've been talking about for weeks that we're both in a reading slump, and I'm like, I have this whole list that's going to be perfect to just do something a little different.
Yeah, I love it. Good chance to mix it up. So hopefully you found something different, and maybe you'll branch out of your normal genre, maybe with one of our suggestions. Yeah. And if you read one and you love it, let us know, because it's always satisfying to hear too, especially if it's sci-fi.
Yeah. I love it. And of course, if you have suggestions, recommendations, please let us know. If something got you out of reading some, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. Give us a follow on the socials, and we'll see you guys next week.